In this video we will add springs of type coil to the model. Altogether we need to define 4 springs. 2 springs for the rear shocks on the left and right side, respectively, and 2 springs for the front shocks. Feel free to fast forward whenever things become too monotonous. Right-click on the spring and damper icon to create a spring. Create a coil spring with name, rear shock spring left. As body 1, select rear shock upper left, and as body 2, rear shock lower left. Select rear shock spring upper left point as point 1 and rear shock spring lower left as point 2. Go to Properties and enter spring stiffness and damping values as shown. Go to the Preload subpanel, and enter free length of the spring as shown. The free length of the spring is the length of the spring when it is unloaded or no external force acting on it. Next, create a spring graphics for the spring just created. Select rear shock left spring as parent body. Select rear shock spring upper left point as point 1, and rear shock spring lower left as point 2. Go to Properties and enter radius and number of coils as shown. Create another spring for rear shock right. Repeat the same procedure as done for rear shock left spring. As body 2, select rear shock lower right. Next, create a spring graphics for rear shock spring right. Now, we will create springs for the front shocks. Create a spring with name, front shock spring left. Select front fork as body 1 and front shock left as body 2. Select front fork middle left point as point 1 and front wheel left point as point 2. Enter spring stiffness and damping values as shown. Go to the preload sub-panel, and enter free length of the spring as shown. Create another spring for right front shock and repeat the same procedure as for front shock spring left. Review the model when done and check carefully the spring definitions.